Okay, so here's how to take good coin photos with your cell phone camera. First thing you're going to want to do is set your ratio to 1 to 1 or square. That's the same thing. I think it's different on an iPhone. I'm not sure. Anyway, what the ratio is, if you don't know, it's how wide the frame is by how tall the frame is. There should be a button that says something like full, 916, 43. It's that one. Set it to 1 to 1 or square. Um, I'll explain later. So then what you're going to want to do next is use something like a stack of books or a toilet paper roll tube. Everybody has one of these. It doesn't take up a lot of space. It's really easy to set up. And what that acts as is like a copy stand. Okay, you just balance your phone on there, and now your phone is perfectly level with the table, right? And you can see how I have a shadow there. That's not going to be great for a coin photo. So make sure your lighting is positioned so that it's good for illuminating what you're shooting, the coin. Um, why we're using this is because it's essentially like a tripod or a copy stand. There's no hand shaking blurriness. Also, because it's perfectly level with the table, you get a perfectly head-on photo. You don't get a photo like this where you could see, you could see the edge of the rim here and then it's no rim over there. It'll be perfectly head-on every time without any problem. Um, that's good for two things. Number one, you get the entirety of the coin in focus. Number two is counterfeit detection. Um, when you have a photo at an angle like this, it makes it way more difficult to detect counterfeits, especially good counterfeits, than a photo like this. A photo like this, where the coin is perfectly head on, um, is going to be perfectly round in the frame. It'll be a perfect circle. When you take a photo like this, it's an oval. See how it's like oval shaped? Round, oval. Now, when you take the photo like that, where it's a perfect circle, perfectly focused, I can go on to NGC Price Guide, PCGS Price Guide, download an image of the same coin, but it's known to be a genuine example because they got it off of those sites. And then I can put that photo over the photo of the coin in question into like an image stacker where one's transparent, and I can see if every single letter and every single detail lines up perfectly. I think there's only one counterfeit that I've ever tried that on that passed the test, and that's the Omega counterfeit. The best counterfeit ever known. So every other one has always failed the test. It's a really good test, and all you need to do is just take a perfectly lined up photo of the coin. By placing it on something like a stack of books or a toilet paper roll tube, really makes it a lot easier. Step number two is you're going to want to put down a stack of pennies or a bottle cap or a pen cap. It just has to be smaller than the coin to raise it up off the table. Why? Because sometimes the camera focuses on the table rather than the coin. See, it just snapped to the coin, but if I touch my screen here, it's blurry and then focused. Blurry, then focused. When you raise the coin up with something, doesn't have to be by a whole lot, like 1 centimeter will do it. It makes it a lot easier for that camera to snap onto the coin rather than the table. Now, the reason that we set our ratio to square is because now when we zoom in, this is important, you're going to want to zoom in so it's nearly filled. You can see now that the distance from the rim to the edge of the coin, or to the edge of the frame, is basically the same on all sides. Whereas, if I had it shifted over like this, or whatever, or up or down, then I'm not getting a perfectly centered photo. It's still going to be off because the camera eye is not centered right over the middle of the coin. And having it in square ratio really helps with that. So now that I have my coin centered, my camera isn't focused on the table like that. It's focused on the coin. I'm ready to take the photo. Also, by the way, the autofocus on phones is just touching the screen on the thing that you want it to focus on. If I want it to focus on the table, I'm going to touch my screen where I see the table, and it'll focus on the table. And now I want it to focus on the coin, so I'm going to touch the coin on my screen right now, and it focuses on the coin. Just like that. You want it focused on the coin, raised up like this, centered in the frame. And then also, make sure the lighting is important. If you have an articulating desk lamp, you could play around with it, see where you want to position the light for the best shot. If you don't have an articulating desk light, kitchen lights work really well. The can lights in the kitchen, some kind of overhead light, stuff like that. Even like, if you're not like really concerned about showing all the marks, diffuse light is pretty darn good. But if you are worried about cleaning, if you're taking pictures for cleaning, you want a direct light. Um, you know, see how you could see all these like tiny little scratches and everything in there? If you take a more diffuse light, it can be really hard to see those scratches, right? So lighting is important. Direct lighting if you want to show the marks, direct lighting from a particular angle especially, diffuse lighting for anything else. A ring light works good for that, just for pretty coin pictures. But anyway, other than that, you're pretty much ready to take the photo. Most cameras should have a timer function. It'll be on there somewhere. If you get a heavy hand, if you're going to press the shutter too hard and shake it, you'll get a blurry picture. You don't want that. So you could use the timer function to delay the shot. So that way when you press the thing, it'll wait 5, 4, 3, 2, and then take the photo when it's perfectly still, and you'll get a really sharp image every time. Your photos won't come out all blurry like this. They'll be sharp like that. Enjoy.